Hey everybody, good morning. As you can tell, I'm still waking up, so a little haggard, but I wanted to make a quick video before I headed out about one of the things I encounter all the time in metronome work that holds people back. And I think this is probably the primary thing, especially when you're just starting out, in terms of like building good habits that you want to be aware of with the metronome, and that is this. You want to make sure that you're not using the metronome as something that is pushing you ahead at a speed that you're uncomfortable with. You want to make sure that you're using the metronome as something that's kind of first tracking your tempo, so giving you kind of an objective measure of what tempo you're able to play the piece at, and also using the metronome as something that's kind of regulating a beat as you practice. So there's really pluses and minuses to using the metronome, and a lot of teachers are a little bit scared to put the metronome on too early. I'm one of them, because if that thing is clicking and pushing you ahead at the very beginning stages of learning, what you tend to do instead of kind of pulling back and taking time to think about what you're doing, you tend to push ahead and tense up. So I opened to a regular, just a random piece in this book. This is a little minuet by Mozart, but let's see just how it goes. Something like that. Okay, so let's say I'm playing that, and I'm practicing, and I'm just starting, say even just the right hand here. I don't know if you can see my right hand. I'll move the camera down a bit. So let's say I just want to work on that, like I'm just learning the piece and I'm going to practice that in the next bit. But I'm not able to play it that fast. Let's say I'm able to read through it at maybe a tempo like this. Okay? So what I'll do is I'm going to find a metronome tempo based on what I feel comfortable with, not just a tempo I pull out of thin air, which is something people do, but something based on what I feel comfortable with, and I'm going to err on the side of being slow. So that might be a really good tempo for me. Now, why I err on the side of being slow? First of all, when you first start practicing with the metronome, it's going to be a distraction for you, and so you're going to need to go slower. And second of all, it's pretty common, for example, to be able to start the piece with one tempo and then have the next measure be maybe a problem area and have to slow down, and that always makes people feel like, oh, I can play at this tempo, but really they can't. So err on the slower side. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get to a part where you feel like you're not quite sure what's coming up, or you don't know that section well enough. So we're assuming here that you've already kind of reviewed the notes a little bit, right? Like you're not just sight reading this. You have it sort of in your finger, but now you want to turn the metronome on and get a beat going. So now let's say I'm comfortable now, but now I'm not sure what's coming up here. What an inexperienced practicer will do is they'll try and push ahead, and they'll do something like this. Everything's going fine, and then they'll try and push ahead, and now see, everything just kind of turns into a disaster. So I hope that made sense. I'm trying to pretend to mess up. And what happens then is they get in this kind of vicious cycle. If they're trying to keep up, the metronome's clicking, and then they're just building tension and confusion. And that's the opposite of what you want. So what you want to do instead, in this kind of scenario where you have something coming up where you don't know what's happening or what you're going to play, is actually to build a pause into the beat. So watch. Okay, everything's fine because I'm comfortable here. Now I don't know what's coming up. Now what I'm doing as this is clicking is I'm looking ahead, getting my bearings, pause, you see? And then I can do that a few times. So I'm putting a little bit of what's called pause practice, or what I call pause practice in there, where I'm pausing right at the beginning of the measure to look ahead, just a few notes, then I keep going a few notes, then I pause. So that's one strategy and a really good habit with metronome practice, okay? So the kind of main principle to hang on to here, though, is that most people tend to go too fast with the metronome. And so from out of the gate, they're just in this vicious cycle of trying to keep up with it, which is confusing to the mind. So they're not ordering their thoughts properly, and it's confusing to the muscles, to the muscle memory. So it really can kind of screw everything up. So err on the slow side and build pauses into your metronome practice. Remember that it's not something that's supposed to be kind of like whipping you ahead. It's something that's supposed to be kind of acting as a gauge and kind of setting a little bit of regularity and pulse in your playing. And it's not a cure-all for everything. So I hope that's helpful. There's a lot of other topics that I can talk about and we'll talk about. For example, using the metronome as one tool for building up speed and velocity and more advanced playing and things like that. But hopefully that will get a start for you just as you maybe start to incorporate the metronome into your playing. One other thing, and I'll expand on this later, is notice that I only picked one line. A big mistake that people make is they'll try and do like a whole piece with the metronome, and that's not very efficient, but that's just a general rule of practice too, is when you're starting something, you don't want to do the whole swath of it necessarily until you feel mentally comfortable. So err on the low side, build pauses into your practice, and then you can track that number in your playing, even in the music. Come back the next day, see if you can go up a little bit more and use it as a tool to order your thoughts, to order the regularity and feeling comfortable with what's coming up rather than as a tool to push you ahead. Okay, I hope that made sense. I know I'm a little tired and haggard, but I wanted to record something real quick before I was running off to the gym. So have a nice day. Bye.